This is a heavenly treasure that no one can obtain. Not because they are not strong enough, but because the closer they get, their bodies bear an unimaginable gravitational force. Even fourth-rank martial artists can only barely stand in the gravity field, but among the tens of thousands of martial artists present, only I move through the terrifying gravity as if it were empty land. It turns out I possess the strongest physical body in the world, the Overlord Physique. Even martial arts that others cannot learn in decades, I can master in a short time, but just a few days ago, I was just one of many martial apprentices in the martial arts class. Although I had decent talent for martial arts, I was called a training maniac by others. And the reason I work so hard is only to become a martial artist as soon as possible so my uncle and aunt can live a good life. Because when I was 3 years old, my parents died in a beast disaster. It was my uncle and aunt who raised me. After learning that I had talent for martial arts, they fully supported my training. After all, in this era of rampant beasts, martial artists are a high-income profession. But one day when I came home from school, I overheard them discussing my application to the martial arts program. My aunt planned to stop taking her medicine that regulated her health and asked my uncle to take on another job to help gather the 30,000 yuan registration fee as soon as possible. This made me feel very bad inside. I practiced martial arts precisely to let them live a good life, but now it was making their lives even harder. So I slapped my cheeks to wake myself up. Pretending not to know, I pushed open the door. I wanted to take over the work of applying plaster for my aunt, but they were worried that I was too tired from training during the day and told me to go back to my room and rest. After lying in bed, I could not fall asleep. Thinking that my uncle and aunt had already done enough for me, I absolutely could not let them continue to work so hard. And as a martial apprentice, to earn tens of thousands in a few days, there was only one place. The next day, inside the underground fighting arena building, I stand on the defensive arena for warrior apprentices. According to the rules, I only needed to win 4 consecutive matches. They'll get an 60,000 yuan bonus. So a newcomer stepped forward to defend the arena. The audience thought I was asking for death. The host did not care about that and asked me to say something to hype up the atmosphere. After learning that I needed to insult and provoke, I immediately shouted, "I am invincible below martial artist. Above martial artist, I trade 1 for 1. Weaklings, come fight." Everyone was seeing such an arrogant defender for the first time and demanded the host start the match quickly so the challengers could kill this bull-headed man. But I was not afraid at all. My confidence came from the recently mastered Diamond Fist. You see, most martial apprentices only have entry-level martial skills. Mastery level is basically a dimension reduction strike, and the evaluation standards for martial arts in this world are divided into entry, proficient, mastery, grandmastery, and perfection, these 5 levels. Soon I faced my first challenger. He did not waste words, saying he would teach this arrogant kid a lesson, but I only used a proficient level floating light palm, and his whole body was sent flying by a tremendous force. The next second, he fell straight off the arena stage. And just like that, I easily won the first match. The second opponent looked somewhat stronger, but after taking 1 punch from me, he overextended and left his waist wide open with a fierce kick from me. He followed the fate of the previous challenger. But just as the host announced the bull-headed man had won 2 consecutive matches, a figure on the high platform was watching all this. This man is the behind-the-scenes owner of the underground fighting arena. He could see that my strength far exceeded that of ordinary martial apprentices. This kind of person, not strong enough to be top, but strong enough to beat the rest, was perfect for fixed matches. So he called his disciple over and told him not to reveal his martial artist identity and try to recruit me. By this time, I had already won the 3rd match. With just 1 more win, I could get the 60,000 yuan bonus. Suddenly the noise in the venue grew louder. I heard everyone say the one stepping up was White Fox, and that he had the strength of a quasi-martial artist. I could not help but become fully alert, knowing that a tough battle was coming. White Fox smiled and told me not to be afraid. He would not go for the kill. As the host announced the start of the final match, both of our figures turned into blurs and charged, even though I was mentally prepared. The force from our fist collision made me keenly realize that this guy was not a quasi-martial artist. He was a real martial artist. He had just deliberately suppressed his blood energy. At the same time, White Fox suddenly increased his punching speed, and each punch came with 3 sonic booms. For a moment, I was forced to retreat repeatedly. Everyone recognized this as entry-level thunderclap fist, and exclaimed that the bull-headed man was finished. I knew this could not go on. If I did not find a chance to counterattack, I would surely lose. Unexpectedly, White Fox's punching speed increased again. In the end, I could only watch him break through my defense. This punch landed heavily on me, sending me flying more than 10 meters, and my consciousness was rapidly fading. White Fox then stepped on my head and said I would not get a single cent of the prize money, but if I was willing to join them and cooperate in fixed matches, the 60,000 yuan bonus would still be given. If I refused, the consequences would be severe. But as a martial artist, how could I agree to do such a shameless thing? So I told them that such people were not worthy of being martial artists. White Fox's face darkened, and he raised his foot to kick my head, saying since I was unwilling, he would cripple me and let me be a martial artist in my dreams. Hearing this, I suddenly opened my eyes wide. Becoming a martial artist had always been my dream. I absolutely could not fall here. With this strong will, I managed to dodge his fatal attack, seeing me stand up and repeatedly muttering that I could not fall here. White Fox found it hard to believe. He did not understand how this person could still stand. after taking his thunderclap fist. At that moment, I thought of all the years my uncle and aunt had sacrificed. I thought of how I trained martial arts to let them live a good life. But thinking that all of this would turn to nothing, such a future. I absolutely refuse. However, when I opened my eyes again, I saw a light screen appear before me, asking me what I was willing to give for my family and for my beliefs. I answered without hesitation, everything. The next second, the surrounding scenery turned illusory. When I came to my senses, I was already in a dim palace, and ahead stood a phantom figure like a deity. After saying, "I will give you this chance," it turned into golden light and merged into my body. Then to my surprise, a golden panel lit up with a swoosh. It not only displayed my attributes and mastered martial skills. There is also a quest called Path of the Arena. Out of curiosity, I opened the quest log and saw that it told me to hone my skills here and deal with the white fox waiting outside. The goal was to raise Diamond Fist proficiency to Grand Mastery and Floating Light Palm and Airwalk Step to Mastery. Just as I was wondering what this was all about, a figure gradually materialized behind me. Hearing the whistling sound beside my ear, I quickly reacted and dodged the incoming fist. I thought, is this my clone? It is even using Diamond Fist, and its movements are as standard as a textbook. But with such a good example before me, how could I miss the chance to learn? Yet unexpectedly, the clone grabbed my hand and threw a heavy punch at me. After being hit and stumbling back several steps, I saw the progress bar for Diamond Fist increase by 3%. Realizing that fighting could quickly upgrade martial skills, I assumed my stance again, ready for battle. As I fought the clone with all my might, the progress bars for all my skills grew rapidly, and I went from being beaten at the start to gradually gaining the upper hand. Eventually, I could even send the clone flying. Finally, at a certain moment, my Airwalk Step and Floating Light Palm broke through to Proficient, and Diamond Fist smoothly reached Grand Mastery. Since the quest was complete, the clone dissolved into golden specks of light. At this moment, the white fox outside saw me silent and thought I was just putting on an act. So he charged at me again with Thunderclap Fist. But all of his attacks were dodged by me one by one, and when I counterattacked, White Fox could not react in time. Without any surprise, his fox mask was instantly shattered. Seeing White Fox fall to the ground with a thud, the audience was stunned. None of them expected White Fox to lose, but more than the victory, I cared about when I would get the bonus. As for this matter, the behind-the-scenes boss did not refuse to pay up. He just could not understand how a martial apprentice could cultivate Diamond Fist to Grand Mastery. Even most martial artists could not achieve that. To find out the reason, he ordered his men to investigate my identity. Half an hour later, I was walking home and noticed the tail behind me. Without giving them a chance, I quickly turned a corner, seeing them lose their target and look troubled. I sneered inwardly, trying to follow me. No way. After they left, I finally returned home. My uncle and aunt were shocked to see so much money and thought I had robbed a bank. I had to make up an excuse that I was a sparring partner at a martial arts hall, and the owner thought I was talented. So he decided to sponsor my training. With my silver tongue, they actually believed my story. At night, I went to my secret base. The martial arts registration fee was now solved, and my aunt's medical bills were temporarily covered, all thanks to this system. Suddenly, the system notification sounded, saying I had defeated an opponent above my level and earned 67 martial points. Martial points could be used to increase blood energy and martial skills. So I immediately started testing, and added some martial points to blood energy. Instantly, I felt a hot sensation surge through my body. Blood energy 90 points, reaching the level of a quasi-martial artist. Thinking of that, I added all the remaining martial points to blood energy. Not only did my body strength improve significantly, but my injuries almost completely healed, as if I had endless power. To test my current strength, I went to the school's training ground under the cover of night. There was a first-rank testing instrument there to measure combat power. Then this punch, I will use 70% of my strength. But when my fist hit the instrument, I was completely dumbfounded. Oh no! Oh no! The quality of this testing instrument is too poor. They are not going to make me pay for it, are they? The next second, a shout came from a distant building. Which bastard is not sleeping in the middle of the night? Have you no public decency? Soon the principal rushed over, but only saw the damaged instrument, recalling that the only ones in the school who could do such a thing were Chen Shan and Li Tu. He immediately decided to teach them a lesson when school started. The next day, in the gymnasium of Xingcheng No. 1 High School, the principal gathered all the students who practiced martial arts. But I was a bit curious. Why was Chen Shan beaten up? After my best friend explained, I realized he had taken the blame for me. The principal then introduced us to his comrade. When we learned that he had invited the third-rank martial artist Chen Tian, who would soon teach everyone a C-rank martial art, Thunderclap Fist. Everyone immediately started discussing. This was the first time they had seen a third-rank martial artist. I also realized that White Fox's fist technique was exactly Thunderclap Fist. Every punch can unleash 3 shockwaves. Such prowess is truly admirable. Moreover, learning such a C-rank martial art outside would cost hundreds of thousands just in registration fees. So I absolutely had to seize this opportunity. Then Chen Tian spoke, saying he would demonstrate it 10 times from beginning to end. How much you learn depends on yourself. As he threw a punch, he also began explaining the essentials of Thunderclap Fist. This martial art is fierce and domineering. At entry level, each punch produces 1 thunderclap sound. Proficient produces 3 sounds. Mastery 5, Grand Mastery 7, which was his current level. At the perfection level, Each punch produces 9 sounds. And so everyone followed his movements and practiced. After several hours, everyone was lying on the ground exhausted, complaining that this fist technique was too hard, and they could not learn it at all. My best friend Chen Lin was also exhausted. He wanted to ask if I had learned anything, but only saw that my spot was already empty. But then he was surprised to find that the so-called genius Chen Shan had already reached entry level. Seeing this, the principal recommended Chen Shan to Chen Tian, hoping he could guide the school's #1 genius. Chen Tian directly refused, believing that Chen Shan was only at the passing level in other cities. Then the two left the gym together, hearing Chen Tian comment that this batch of students had poor talent and that he had wasted his trip. The principal was a bit speechless, but he knew that martial cultivation was extremely cruel. Without talent and opportunity, hard work alone was far from enough. But just then, the two heard a series of thunderclap sounds. Following the source of the sound, they found someone practicing thunderclap fist on the playground. And judging by the attire, he was a student from the previous group. What they did not expect was, as I punched again, the thunderclap sounds actually rang out 9 times. This caused Chen Tian's body to tremble uncontrollably. He had actually been inspired by my technique, and broke through his stagnant thunderclap fist to 8 sounds. With excitement, the two rushed onto the playground, eager to know what kind of genius could cultivate thunderclap fist to perfection in just half a day. But when they got close, they found nothing, because by then I was already on the street, thinking that since thunderclap fist was already perfected, the next step was to find ways to earn martial points, and strive to break through to martial artist as soon as possible. I just did not know if, apart from life and death battles, fighting someone in a normal sparring match could also earn martial points. To test this idea, I came to the martial arts hall, where I usually worked part-time. There were already many students engaged in intense sparring, but just as my acquaintance Song Fei came over to greet me, someone was kicked to the ground. Then I saw a stranger cursing the other as useless, saying if you have no talent, do not blame the teacher. Song Fei told me his teacher was the new instructor, but he looked down on the students here, so his classes were very perfunctory, and this guy named Li Yan was very strong. Seeing Li Yan about to strike that person again, I stepped forward and grabbed his wrist, seeing someone interfere, and advised him to show restraint. Li Yan was furious, and told me to let go, otherwise do not blame him for being rude. Then a middle-aged man stopped the commotion, and reminded everyone that class was starting. Li Yan had no choice but to glare at me and turn away. The speaker was his teacher, Jiang Ming, who had come to teach everyone the Raging Sea Spear technique. After announcing that this would be his last class, he quickly demonstrated it once in front of everyone, while also thinking to himself, I did not expect you bunch of useless people to learn anything. Before leaving, he even threw out a line, how much you learn is up to you. As soon as he left, everyone accused him of being too unreliable. Not only were his movements fast, but he also only taught it once. Only I, with my talent, had already grasped the essentials. The core of this spear technique is that the spear is like a dragon emerging from the sea, with momentum like an endless giant wave. Then I demonstrated it in front of everyone. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded, thinking they were just too stupid to learn it. The noise also alerted Li Yan inside. When he saw me wielding the spear, he was somewhat surprised that I could learn this spear technique, so he decided to test my depth, and offered to help guide my spear technique. Song Fei advised me not to be impulsive, saying that although Li Yan's character was poor, his strength was indeed strong. But how could I miss a free sparring partner? After telling him not to worry, I assumed my stance and prepared for battle. Li Yan did have some real skill. He had actually cultivated the Raging Sea Spear technique to the mastery level, but when he saw my starting posture, he was greatly shocked. He could tell this seemed to be a proficient level Raging Sea Spear technique, and just as he was stunned, I had already thrust the spear at him. With a single strike, I knocked his spear out of his hand. At the same time, the system actually notified me that my martial points had increased by 35. This also verified my previous guess. On the other hand, Li Yan was sitting on the ground. He had not expected that someone who was not even a martial artist could cultivate this martial skill to proficient so quickly, which undoubtedly negated all his years of effort. With humiliation and anger, he immediately charged at me with his fists, but a voice stopped him. It was his teacher, Jiang Ming, walking over with a dark face. He not only slapped Li Yan in public, but also scolded him for not even having the courage to face failure, and that he was not worthy of being a martial artist. But thinking that even the geniuses of Moju and Daijing could not learn to proficient just by watching once, he immediately pressed Li Yan's head down and made him apologize to me. This left me a bit speechless, thinking that this guy sure could change his face quickly. After leaving the martial arts hall, I summed up today's gains. Not only had I learned Thunderclap Fist and Raging Sea Spear technique, but I had also earned martial points. But the school exam was in a few days. I needed to prepare the weapon for the exam as soon as possible, combining the previous battle. I found that the spear seemed to suit me well. Unfortunately, my money was not even enough for my aunt's treatment, let alone buying a spear that cost tens of thousands on the market. Thinking of this, I sighed. What other ways were there to make money? Suddenly, the TV in the convenience store broadcast a news flash, saying that wild beasts in the outskirts of Xingcheng were increasing day by day, and martial artists could get generous rewards from the city lord after killing them. This made me happy. It was just like getting a pillow when feeling sleepy. Soon, at home, my aunt was applying plaster to my uncle, while complaining about why he was working so hard. But my uncle's answer was that Xiao Hong was still young. He had to work while he still could to save up some family savings for the children. Of course, All this was seen by me outside the door. So I stepped forward and took the plaster from my aunt and told my uncle that I could now earn money. He just needed to stay home and take care of my aunt. However, my uncle gave me a thumbs up, saying he only earned small money for daily expenses. My aunt also added, "Xiao Hong, you still need a lot of money for martial arts training. We want to save as much as we can for you." Hearing this, a warmth surged in my heart. I also understood that unless I earned enough money to last a lifetime, they would not rest assured to retire and treat their illnesses. So this bounty for hunting beasts must not be missed. So after they fell asleep, I went to the rooftop and added all my martial points to blood energy, directly raising my blood energy to 95.2, just one step away from becoming a martial artist. To be safe, I spent another 2 days cultivating my martial skills to the perfection level. Then next, it was time to leave the city. The next day, inside the Yangcheng martial artist base. Since it was my first time here, I was curious about everything around me. Those martial artists who were rarely seen on ordinary days were everywhere here. I also learned from the hunting guide the value of various beasts. The prerequisite was that I had to cut off the left ear of the beast as proof. Otherwise, the reward would not be given. Then a commotion caught my attention. As for the attire and temperament of the person in the middle, he looked a bit like White Fox from the underground fighting arena. But I did not think much of it, because whether it was beasts or humans, I would definitely be cautious. Although the security guards at the city gate let me through, they thought I was overestimating myself. Going into the wild at such a young age was basically suicide. After a 2-hour sprint, I encountered my first beast in the wild. It was a first-rank low-level moonlit wolf mentioned in the textbooks. Facing the moonlit wolf's claws charging at me, I was not flustered at all. While dodging its attack with a sidestep, I directly charged up Thunderclap Fist and hit it. The terrifying power sent it flying instantly. Looking at the moonlit wolf that was dead beyond dead, I could not help but tremble with excitement. So this is what fighting monsters feels like. It is even more thrilling than I imagined. I just wondered if facing a first-rank mid-level beast, I could also kill it in one blow like this. But just as this thought crossed my mind, a first-rank mid-level raging black bear had already pounced over. The result was still a one-punch kill. This gave me full confidence. As long as I did not provoke a second-rank beast, I would not encounter too much danger. Just after cutting off the bear's ear as proof, the system sent a notification saying that my accumulated martial points were enough to break through to martial artist. Before I could even make the breakthrough, a roar that made my soul tremble sounded. Curious about what kind of beast had such a presence, I leaped a few times to the source of the sound, and that single glance made me freeze in place. Because what appeared before me was actually a first-rank late-stage black jade python, and there were also several martial artists fighting it. But soon the martial artists were hit by the black jade python and crashed like cannonballs into the rocks below. The next second, I immediately sensed danger. Although I jumped away before the python's tail slammed down, I still could not avoid its second attack, and this blow made me cough up quite a bit of blood. If I had not crossed my arms in front of my chest in time, it would definitely have been more than just a minor injury. So I picked up the spear of the dead martial artist beside me. Looking at this giant creature before me, I knew that to kill a first-rank late-stage beast, I would need at least several martial artists of the same level to cooperate. But all my martial skills were at perfection. I definitely had the capital to fight it. Thinking this, I silently activated the Raging Sea Spear technique. As I threw the spear with all my might, the python let out a scream. The spear pierced through its body like a sharp sword. But after all, the black jade python was a late-stage beast. This blow did not cause it too much damage. It seemed I could only weaken it as much as possible first, and then look for an opportunity to deliver the fatal blow. But just as I was thinking this, the python's tail was already right in front of me. So I directly used Thunderclap Fist and punched it. After knocking it back, I quickly retreated to create distance, and I also thought of a way to deal with it, which was to retreat immediately after a successful attack, and then wait for another opportunity. This method was physically exhausting, but it was safe. Looking at its condition, it seemed to be reaching its limit. The other martial artist must have consumed a lot of its stamina. However, just as I was about to strike again, a whistling sound came from behind me. It was a martial artist throwing a punch at me. Although I blocked it in time, I was still sent flying by the force. When I stood up, several figures were walking slowly toward me. The one in front told me to hand over the black jade python to them, and he recognized me as the martial artist who had left the city alone earlier. He had thought I would die in the wild, but he had not expected that I was not only alive, but had also found a heavily injured black jade python. I also realized, since he said I found it, that meant they had probably just arrived. Unexpectedly, the burly man who had struck earlier charged again, and told me to get lost, that this python was their young master Ye's. Hearing this, my face darkened. You only pushed me back because of a sneak attack. Do you really think I am a pushover? With that, I threw a punch back at him. The burly man never dreamed that his fist would be instantly deflected by a tremendous force. Caught off guard, he took the full force of my punch, seeing the burly man fall to the ground. The man called Young Master Ye still wore a smile. He praised my diamond fist as impressive, and confirmed that I was the bull-headed man from that night. This surprised me a little. No wonder he had seemed familiar at the time. So he was White Fox. Thinking that I had made him lose face in front of so many people, White Fox directly ordered them to kill me. Knowing I could not fight them head-on, I ran into the depths of the forest without looking back. Soon they all caught up. The person in front was about to warn the others to watch for ambushes, but I appeared behind him with a whoosh. Before the others could react, he was knocked to the ground by Thunderclap Fist, hearing the 9 sounds echoing through the forest, and looking at their dead companion. The remaining few were no longer calm. Their eyes were filled with fear of the 9-sound Thunderclap Fist. Even White Fox was no exception. He knew that even a third-rank martial artist could not necessarily cultivate Thunderclap Fist to perfection, yet I had used 2 different perfection-level martial skills. I was watching all this from the treetops. If it were not for the exhaustion from fighting the python, I could have directly defeated them head-on, but for now, I could only pick them off one by one. As the other's attention was drawn by the spear, I quickly locked onto a target, then slammed my knee into his head with all my force. By the time the other 2 reacted, they only saw this man fall backward, then another whistling sound rang out. The last martial artist guarding White Fox was also taken out. Even now, White Fox could not understand. How could my strength have changed so much? In just a few days, however, he still caught me appearing behind him, and immediately gathered a blue light in his hand. Sensing that this martial skill seemed quite powerful, I quickly ducked to dodge. The beam of light hit the tree trunk, and actually snapped the tree in half. If I was not mistaken, this power should have reached B rank. At the same time, White Fox spoke, saying he had remembered my face. If I dared to hurt him, he would go back and kill my entire family. This undoubtedly touched my Decia. If he had any chance of survival just a moment ago, now he was definitely going to die. White Fox had no idea he was dancing on his own grave, and was still using his uncle, the director of the martial artist base, as a backing. But unexpectedly, I had already appeared behind him. Kill my whole family. You have to get out of here alive first. As my fist struck him, his whole body flew out of the forest like a cannonball. When I reached him, I coldly said, "Your biggest mistake was threatening my family." At this moment, he could not understand. How could the person before him, only a martial apprentice, beat him, a martial artist, to such a state? But just as he desperately wanted to know the answer, a dark shadow rapidly expanded behind him. He did not even have time to let out a scream. Before he was crushed into pulp by the black jade python's tail, I immediately assumed a battle stance. I also realized that the prolonged fight with these people had given the python time to recover its strength. Meanwhile, in the forest, the martial artists I had knocked down earlier had also regained consciousness. When they saw me running toward them, they instinctively wanted to join forces and teach me a lesson, but they did not expect that the black jade python was following right behind me. Perhaps finding them annoying, the black jade python actually opened its mouth and bit them. Seeing the system notification of the defeated martial artists, I gained more understanding of how to earn martial points, but after so many battles, my martial points were already enough for me to break through to martial artist. So while dodging the python's attacks, I began searching for a suitable spot in the forest to break through. A few minutes later, I actually found a cave, but just as I rushed in, the python crashed in right after me. I knew I had to add all the martial points to my blood energy as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the python broke in, it would be too late. But as my blood energy continued to increase, my entire body became burning hot, as if the blood flowing through my body was not blood, but molten lava. Finally, at a certain moment, my blood energy reached 100. I had completely left the identity of a martial apprentice behind, and became a true martial artist. So now it was time to counterattack. Soon a loud noise echoed from inside the cave. After sending the python's body flying, I charged forward again with Diamond Fist. However, the python seized the opportunity, and quickly swung its tail at me. But now, I could easily block its attack. Then I repaid it with a set of Raging Sea Spear technique, forcing the python's body firmly to the ground. With nowhere to escape, the python could only take my full-powered Thunderclap Fist. Killing it also earned me 92 martial points. But soon I ran into a problem. To exchange for rewards, I needed to cut off the left ear. But this one had no ears left. What could I do? Helpless, I had to give up on the reward, and turn to White Fox's corpse. After all, the martial skill he used earlier was quite powerful. Such a high-level skill would probably be carried on him. After some searching, I actually found a manual called Void Breaker Finger. So over the next few hours, I memorized the entry-level techniques of Void Breaker Finger in the cave. Then I closed my eyes, and began using the system's ability. After entering the otherworldly space, my clone appeared as expected, but the fight had just begun, and the clone left a wound on my cheek. This successfully aroused my competitive spirit. I immediately engaged in an exchange of finger techniques with the clone. As time passed by, my Void Breaker Finger finally reached the entry level. As for next, I needed to find some unlucky person to test its power. And so, 3 consecutive days passed. I kept fighting beasts in the forest. Void Breaker Finger went from entry level to the perfection level. So that afternoon, I returned to the martial artist base, hearing that the Thunder Squad had earned 300,000 this time. Everyone around sighed that teaming up was indeed powerful. They could earn several months' income in just a few days. Suddenly, a commotion came from another redemption point. When everyone gathered around, they saw that the beast proofs I submitted were all mid to high-level beasts, totaling several hundred in number, and the redemption amount was as high as over 400,000. But I could not be happy at all. First, the Black Jade Python was not counted. And second, I had killed too many and attracted too much attention. But just then, an explosion occurred in the martial artist base building, instantly drawing the attention of all the martial artists. A middle-aged man walked out angrily and ordered the entire base to be sealed off. Even flies were not allowed to leave. At first, everyone was puzzled by his order, until they heard him explain that his nephew, Ye Feng, and the 4 martial artists with him had all died. The people present not only did not care, but felt that Yi Feng, that scourge, deserved to die. If it were not for his uncle, Ye Qi being the director here, they would have wanted to kill him themselves. Yi Qi then said that a B-rank martial skill on his nephew had been lost. Everyone here had to be searched before they could leave. Hearing this, I felt somewhat relieved, because they had all died in the python's mouth, so it should not be traced back to me. But just as I was thinking this, Yi Qi actually turned his gaze toward me. Seeing him walk toward me, the surrounding martial artist consciously moved aside. When he reached me, he slowly spoke. "Little brother, I heard you alone killed beasts worth 400,000. Impressive skills." And in the eyes of the female staff member, a first-rank beginner martial artist could not possibly do such a thing, so she suspected that I had picked up Ye Feng's backpack. The 2 security guards immediately moved and told me to cooperate with the search. But before they could act, they found a gleaming spear tip suddenly appearing before them, and its speed was so fast they could not see it clearly. When they heard me say I was a student of Yangcheng No. 1 High School, and that they had better think carefully before searching me, Yi Qi knew well that the principal of No. 1 High School always protected his students. If they were wrong, it would not be worth it. So he signaled the security guards to step back. He told me that after his nephew was attacked, the family martial skill was stolen. As an uncle, he had no choice but to do this. As long as I agreed to be searched, he would give me 10,000 yuan as compensation. But I raised 3 fingers and raised the price to 30,000. And the reason I dared to make such a condition was because Yi Feng was ultimately killed by the python. And that Voidbreaker finger manual had long been disposed of. No matter how carefully they searched, if they could not find the martial skill, they could not trace it back to me. And so I not only got 30,000 yuan, but also cleared myself of suspicion as the killer. After leaving the base, I found a hotel to rest and opened my attribute panel. These past few days, I had been focused on cultivating Voidbreaker finger and hunting beasts, and had not used any martial points at all. I had accumulated 534 points. As I recalled, a first-rank beginner martial artist needed 100 blood energy. A first-rank mid-level needed 200 blood energy. It could increase by 53.4. I was still short of over 40 points to reach mid-level, but I had not upgraded spirit and body yet. I did not know what effects they had. Thinking of this, I added some blood energy points to the spirit attribute, but I did not notice any change. However, when I added martial points to the body, I could feel a significant increase in strength, and even my appearance turned into a muscular man. But after a moment, my body gradually returned to normal. Otherwise, if I stayed in that muscular state, I could not imagine how I would explain it to acquaintances. As for the remaining 200 martial points, I would just add them all to blood energy. After resting for a while, I arrived at the Yangcheng Martial Artist Association. Only by passing the assessment standards here could I officially become a member of the martial artists. After telling the staff my purpose, she could tell it was my first time taking the assessment, and kindly reminded me that a first-rank martial artist needed 100 blood energy and a combat score above 1,000 to pass. The 2 martial artists behind me also started discussing me. They noticed I had come alone, without even a master. So young he must be here to see the world. But just then, a commotion came from the assessment hall ahead. Test. Under everyone's watch. He stood by the combat testing instrument again, as he used a 5-sound thunderclap fist and struck the instrument heavily. The panel showed his combat power reached 1,763 points. Everyone immediately regarded him as a genius, and some recognized his identity. Hearing them say he was the disciple of Zhang Ming from the Thunderclap Martial Arts Hall, I could not help but feel confused. I thought Zhang Ming's disciple was named Li Yan, so how did another one appear? Unexpectedly, Li Ming smirked and came up to me, indicating that it was my turn next. Then he sneered inwardly. In his opinion, no, coming at this age was just embarrassing. But the next second, exclamations from the crowd rang out. When he saw the instrument show my blood energy as 123, he was stunned, speechless. Unable to believe my blood energy was even higher than his, but he still comforted himself that high blood energy was useless. Combat power was the measure of a genius. At the examiner's reminder, I also stood by the blood energy tester, thinking that I had advanced to martial artist and upgraded my physique. But to be safe, I ultimately used 50% of my strength. However, the moment my fist touched the instrument instrument was sent flying like a cannonball, and the wall not far away was also damaged. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. It was the first time they had seen someone punch a testing instrument away, and the other party seemed to have used no martial skill at all. While a first-rank high-level martial artist's combat power was only 3,000 points, 2 figures on the high platform were also surprised. The owner of the underground fighting arena murmured, "So it is him. No wonder he has such strength." Meanwhile, in the office of the Yangcheng Martial Arts Association, President Wu Lingxian was angrily looking at her phone, very dissatisfied that the neighboring Yangcheng branch had produced another genius, while her Yangcheng had nothing. If this continued, her position would be at an end. But just as she was thinking this, someone suddenly pushed the door open, saying that a monster had appeared in the martial artist assessment. Only first-rank beginner, yet with just pure physical strength, he punched the testing instrument flying, and his combat power reached a terrifying over 3,000 points. At this moment, in the central hall, I was being led to the second floor to register as a martial artist, but a figure appeared at the elevator entrance. It was President Wu Lingxian. After introducing herself, she told me to follow her. I nodded subconsciously, thinking that this was the president of the Yangcheng Martial Artist Association. She was said to be a 5th-rank martial artist, a bit different from what I had imagined. And so Wu Lingxian took me to the president's office. She knew I was a student of Yangcheng No. 1 High School, but she had not expected such a talent to appear this year. Faced with her evaluation, I was very nervous. But I still gathered the courage to ask why she had called me here. After all, I came to register as a martial artist, and to receive the allowance and the guiding technique. Wu Lingxian motioned for me not to be nervous. She had called me over to personally guide my cultivation of the guiding technique, and asked me to tell her my level of understanding of the guiding technique. Hearing me answer that the textbook said the guiding technique was a method to absorb heaven and earth spiritual energy to strengthen oneself. Technique. Wu Lingxian opened her palm and condensed a ball of flame, explaining that the guiding technique was not just a cultivation method. For example, the Skyfire guiding technique she cultivated mainly absorbed fire-attributed spiritual energy to strengthen herself, and also allowed her attacks to have fire-attributed lethality. If she could release attribute attacks externally, she could also increase attack range. But for a first-rank martial artist, let alone wrapping their fist in an attribute, being able to carry a trace of attribute was already very good. Seeing this, I was greatly surprised. I had never thought that the guiding technique could be used for attacks. As Wu Lingxian said that heaven and earth spiritual energy had 7 attributes, divided into metal, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, and wind. Among them, thunder, metal, and fire had the strongest offensive power. But each attribute had its strengths and weaknesses. Which one I could cultivate depended on my compatibility. She then picked up a sphere on the desk, saying it was a crystal ball for testing compatibility. The larger the glowing area, the higher the compatibility. Ordinary martial artists had about 30%, and she had 80% when she was tested. Combined with my performance in the assessment hall just now, she guessed my compatibility would definitely exceed 90%. Holding the crystal ball in my hand, I fell into thought. The president had 80% and became a 5th-rank martial artist so young. She was definitely a genius. If I could reach 90%, that would be too exaggerated. But the next second, the crystal ball immediately emitted a dazzling red light. The brightness filled the entire office. Wu Lingxian was stunned. She could see that my fire attribute compatibility had reached 100%. Then she excitedly told me that this kind of compatibility, her 80% compatibility, would lose 20% when absorbing fire-attributed spiritual energy, and my future achievements would only surpass hers. Not inferior to the monsters from the Modu and Daijing regions. Hearing this, I looked at the crystal ball, thinking that although the fire attribute was not bad, I preferred the thunder attribute. If I could have the thunder attribute, that would be even better. But the moment this thought crossed my mind, countless wildly dancing bolts of lightning appeared on the crystal ball. This scene left Wu Lingxian frozen in place. This was not a genius, this was a monster. But then she was completely dumbfounded, because I slightly shifted the attribute. A few minutes later, Wu Lingxian was slumped on the sofa, completely speechless, thinking she must be dreaming. How could anyone have 100% in all attributes? She had always considered herself a top genius. A 30-year-old 5th-rank martial artist was rare. But when faced with someone beyond common sense, she realized she was just an ordinary person. To defeat someone beyond common sense, one needed those who were also beyond common sense, like this freak before her. I was thinking that since I had 100% in all 7 attributes, if I only cultivated thunder and gave up the others, I would feel like I was losing out big time. So I suggested to Wu Lingxian, could she give me copies of all 7 attribute guiding techniques? When she learned that this method was not advisable, and that someone in the past had tried to cultivate all 7 simultaneously, but remained a first-rank martial artist for decades, and it was best to choose 1 or 2 to cultivate. I had to explain that I could not decide for now, so I wanted to try them all to see the effects, and then decide which one to cultivate. She reluctantly agreed. Suddenly Wu Lingxian changed the topic, asking if Yangcheng No. 1 High School was about to hold its monthly exam. The reason she brought this up was because friction in the Zhuqian battlefield had been intensifying lately, and a war between the myriad races and humanity could break out at any time. So various countries had invested Dalian resources to establish a genius training camp. As long as I could get first place in the school's monthly exam, she could give me a recommended spot. Hearing this, I immediately expressed that I would definitely strive for first place. After all, if it were not for the Great War of the Myriad Races decades ago, I would not have lost all my relatives except my uncle and aunt. So I had to become strong, and never let that tragedy happen again. When I returned home, it was already night, and the martial artist identity certificate I handed over made my uncle and aunt so emotional they cried tears of joy, and with the monthly 10,000 yuan allowance of a first-rank martial artist, they finally agreed to stop working so hard. Seeing things develop as I had hoped, I felt relieved, and made up my mind to support this family from today on. As the night deepened, I was on the rooftop cultivating the guiding technique. Although I had already cultivated the fire-attributed guiding technique to entry level, I was surprised to find that my punches had no power at all. But when I opened the system panel, it did indeed show a guiding technique section. Just as I was wondering about this, my gaze suddenly focused on the level 1 marker. Could it be that the guiding technique had levels as well? But President Wu had not mentioned it. Could it really be what I thought? I was about to use martial points to upgrade its level, but the system popped up a notification that martial points were insufficient, so I had to calm down and plan to learn all the remaining guiding techniques first. after several hours of hard work. But soon I noticed something unusual. Although there were 7 different types of heaven and earth spiritual energy in my body, they had been repelling each other, and after decades, I was still only a first-rank martial artist, and I could only use one attribute at a time. If I forcibly used 2 of them, they would react violently and eventually disappear. But thunder and fire had relatively similar properties. Maybe they could be fused together. Thinking of this, I immediately began to try. Even after repeated failures, I still refused to give up. Until dawn the next day, I opened my palm again, and knew I was just one step away from mastering the technique. As I added the fire attribute, I kept adjusting the ratio between the two. Finally, at a certain moment, the 2 different attributes were cleverly fused together. Seeing this, I let out a long sigh of relief. Finally succeeded. I just wondered if the thunder-fire force I had worked all night to create could bring me a surprise. To test its power, I went to the New City Public Martial Arts Arena. After all, the 3rd-rank combat testing instrument here should not be broken by one punch like last time, but I still held back. This punch, in addition to adding thunder force, only used 30% of my strength, but unexpectedly, one punch. The instrument showed 2,343 combat power, which was 500 points higher than the previous 30% strength. Thinking that single thunder force could be this strong, the fused thunder-fire force would certainly be even more astonishing. I decisively added thunder-fire force to the surface of my fist. When my fist contacted the instrument, a deep loud sound filled the surroundings. The panel showed this time's combat power actually reached a Kwajun 3,041 points. Keep in mind, this was only fusing 2 attributes. And with just 30% strength, it surpassed a first-rank high-level martial artist. If I fused all 7 attributes, the power would definitely rival the Buddha's fire lotus of the Lucky Brother. Although the imagination was beautiful, reality gave me a wake-up call. Because when I returned home and tried various combinations, the difficulty was many times higher than fusing 2 attributes. It seemed I could only wait until tomorrow's school exam to earn martial points, and then upgrade the guiding technique level before trying again. Soon it was the next day. All the students were gathered on the playground. The principal told everyone that this school exam was different from the past. Due to the tense frontline situation, geniuses would be selected from each school to join a training camp, where there would be not only numerous martial arts and elixirs, but also Grandmaster level martial artists serving as instructors. The top 3 students in this exam would be eligible to participate in the training camp organized by the new city. Hearing this, everyone was excited. After all, having a 7th-rank Grandmaster as an instructor was something they had never dared to dream of before. But I twitched my mouth, realizing that President Wu had tricked me. Even though the top 3 all had spots, she had specifically asked me to get first place. Then my best friend Chen Lin came up, saying that Chen Shan and Li Tu had both become first-rank martial artists, and many others had cultivated thunderclap fist to the proficient level. Plus, I had not been to school for a few days. In the current situation, the 1st and 2nd places would definitely be between those 2. As for him and me, we were definitely out of luck. On the stage, Qin Tianlie was asking the principal if he had found the genius with the 9-sound thunderclap fist. The principal said he had searched everywhere during this time, and that person might not be a student of number 1 high school, but then he noticed 3 figures walking slowly in the distance. Seeing the leader was his former comrade Jiang Ming, the principal did not give him a good face, and immediately asked him his purpose here. Hearing Jiang Ming say that your students this year are not that great, I also brought 2 disciples. How about after the exam, let the first place student have a sparring match? Of course, if you refuse. I completely understand. The principal's face turned ugly. He knew Jiang Ming had come specifically to embarrass him, but if he did not agree, it would be admitting that the whole school did not have a single worthy talent. But just then, Li Yan suddenly leaned over to Jiang Ming and whispered, "Teacher, bad news. Isn't that kid Su Hong over there?" Following his gaze, he indeed saw a familiar face. Jiang Ming was stunned. He had not expected me to be a student of number 1 high school. Instantly, the 3 had a decision, realizing that if they fought, they would be the ones embarrassed. Awkwardly, they said they were just joking, and that his 2 useless disciples were no match for the students here, but not saying it was fine, saying it made the principal and Qin Tianlie furious. They felt Jiang Ming was utterly detestable, daring to mock them in such a sarcastic way. And as 2 hours passed since the exam began, the broadcast finally announced that it was my turn to fight opponent number 665, Chen Peng. Chen Lin thought I was somewhat unlucky. My first opponent was a quasi-martial artist. Even the homeroom teacher reminded me that I could try a few moves, and just give up if it was too much. Standing before me, Chen Peng also advised me to just step down. Otherwise, he would not mind throwing me off. But the moment he finished speaking, my entire figure vanished from the spot. When I reappeared, I had already pressed my hand on Chen Peng's head, seeing me casually slam Chen Peng to the ground. The homeroom teacher and Chen Lin were stunned. One move to instantly defeat a quasi-martial artist. Was this still the Su Hong they knew? When did he become so powerful? Even the principal and Qin Tianlie were surprised. They knew all the talented students in the school, but they had no impression of me at all. But compared to me, they were more focused on the semi-finals of the 2 other geniuses on the stage, mainly because Chen Shan and Li Tu had similar strength, and they had fought for several rounds without deciding a winner, until Li Tu said they both had 3-sound thunderclap fist. If Chen Shan did not use his trump card, he could not defeat him. Chen Shan understood he was right, so he added flames to his fist, and let Li Tu see clearly. that he was the #1 in the school, everyone opened their mouths wide. They recognized this as attribute external release. And it was the fire attribute, second only to thunder in power. Li Tu was not flustered at all, telling him that attribute external release was nothing. He could do it too. For a moment, everyone was stunned. They had not expected Li Tu to also have mastered attribute external release. And it was the metal attribute which had even stronger combat power than fire. At the same time, Li Tu on the stage struck again, saying that he could do more than just that. Hearing the 5 sonic booms in the air, Chen Shan was utterly incredulous when they saw Chen Shan sent flying by Li Tu's 5-sound thunderclap fist. The principal and Chen Tian felt that Li Tu had been hiding his strength. In just over 10 days, he had mastered attribute external release and cultivated thunderclap fist to the mastery level. His talent truly made him the #1 genius in the school, just as they felt the remaining matches were not worth watching, and that Su Hong absolutely could not beat Li Tu. Jiang Ming came up and asked if they wanted to bet. Learning that he was willing to bet 50,000 on me winning, the principal's first reaction was that he was crazy. Although Su Hong had some talent, without the guiding technique, he was no match for Li Tu. But Chen Tian immediately agreed. Such a free gift of money should not be refused. A few minutes later, I stood on the final lei tai with Li Tu, facing Li Tu's compliment that I was lucky. If I had met him and Chen Shan earlier, I would never have made it to the finals. But I ignored him, thinking that the other students all seemed like weak chickens. Finally, there was someone worth fighting. But before the fight, Li Tu stopped me again. Since you have made it to the finals, from now on, you can call yourself second in the school. Hearing me ask who was first, he immediately threw a punch at me and said that first was naturally him. And to make me understand the gap between us, he immediately used the 5-sound thunderclap fist. This move made the students in the stands exclaim. They all felt that with thunderclap fist, I was definitely going to lose. Seeing that I not only did not dodge, but also threw a punch in return, they were no longer calm, shouting for the referee to save me. But what no one expected was, not only did I block Li Tu's thunderclap fist, but I could also fight him on equal terms. Even Li Tu was shocked. He had thought he could defeat me with just thunderclap fist, but no matter how he threw his punches, I could easily dissolve his attacks. And with each punch he threw, his fist felt a burning sting. Meanwhile, the homeroom teacher and best friend on the stands had already dropped their jaws, never imagining that I could fight evenly with Li Tu, who used thunderclap fist, without using any weapons. The principal and Chen Tian were also surprised. They guessed that I probably had some special physique. Otherwise, I would not have such exaggerated strength. However, Chen Tian sighed. But Li Tu had already condensed an attribute. Relying purely on strength still gave no advantage. At this moment on the lei tai, Li Tu finally realized that pure strength was not enough against me. So he angrily mobilized the metal energy in his body and quickly charged at me, yelling at me not to be arrogant, that the first place in this exam could only be him. Hearing this, I felt a bit helpless. I had wanted to see how far I could go with just physical strength, but this guy had fully erupted so quickly. However, since you are going all out, I must show respect. Seeing the thunder force wrapped around my hand, Li Tu broke out in a cold sweat. Even the duo on the stands were stunned. Neither of them had expected that besides my powerful physical strength, I had also mastered the strongest thunder attribute. This kind of talent was truly 1 in a million. As our fists collided, a violent gust of air swept across the entire lei tai. At this moment, Li Tu's heart could not calm down, and I said to him, "Since you have shown me your ultimate move, I will show you mine." With that, I directly used thunderclap fist, and the very next second, 9 sonic booms echoed across the lei tai. Li Tu was instantly sent flying by the terrifying impact. Before losing consciousness, he could only mutter to himself, 9-sound thunderclap fist. How is that possible? Until Li Tu crashed onto the lei tai with a thud. The entire spectator stand fell silent. A few seconds later, everyone cheered. Among them, the homeroom teacher and Chen Lin were the most excited. They had just witnessed the birth of a monster. Watching the figure walking down the lei tai, the principal and Chen Tian's voices became stammering. Only then did they realize that I was the student who had disappeared from school that day, and such a monster going to the training camp. The principal added, "As the saying goes, a golden scale is not a thing of the pond. It turns into a dragon when it meets wind and cloud. It seems our Xingcheng #1 high school will have a dragon rising." When I returned home, I could not wait to share the news with my uncle and aunt. My uncle had long heard that if I got first place in the monthly exam, I would get a spot in the genius training camp. He sincerely felt happy for me, but a knock on the door interrupted the joy. When the door opened, it was an elegant, wealthy lady. She was the parent of Lin Nian, a fellow student. Her son had just ranked 4th in this monthly exam, so she wanted to use 30,000 yuan to make me give up my spot, so that her Lin Nian could enter the training camp. Seeing that my uncle and I all looked at her like she was an idiot, the wealthy lady was very angry. She did not think that with my family conditions, I could survive among those geniuses who could eat goldsy elixirs until full, and practice high-level martial arts at will. Unexpectedly, my uncle immediately confronted her, cursing that she should not look down on others just because she had some money. If her family was so rich, why did Lin Nian not get first place? With that, he slammed the door shut. The wealthy lady was furious after being shut out, thinking that poor people are poor people. She would just wait for me to be eliminated from the training camp. Afterward, I wanted to tell my uncle not to worry about me, but my uncle gave me a thumbs up. telling me that although he was a rough man, he truly believed that I had the determination to face difficulties. No matter what, he and my aunt would support me unconditionally. Seeing this, I felt warmth in my heart, and silently resolved not to let them down. At night, I went to the rooftop. To protect this hard-won life, I knew I had to become stronger as soon as possible. And this monthly exam had over 10 matches in total, earning me 285 martial points, which could be used to enhance my physical combat power. When these martial points were injected into my body, my physique was strengthened like never before. But even after consuming all the martial points, my body only increased to 64.6%. I wondered what special physique would come after the full body. At this time, I noticed that I had not done anything else these past few days. Could it be that no extra conditions were needed, and that simply cultivating the guiding technique normally could upgrade it? To verify my guess, I decided to try right away if it could be upgraded another level, until dawn the next day. I could sense that both guiding techniques had indeed reached level 3, and my blood energy had also increased by 3 points, which was an unexpected bonus. Half an hour later, I packed a simple bag, said goodbye to my uncle and aunt, and headed alone to the assembly point. Unexpectedly, before I had gone far, a red sports car suddenly stopped in front of me. The driver turned out to be Wu Lingxian, the president of the Martial Artist Association, and so I sat in her passenger seat. During the drive, I asked the question in my mind. President, what do you need from me? Wu Lingxian told me very seriously that there were some things about the training camp I needed to know. According to her information, among those martial artists there were a few monsters whose strength had already reached first-rank high level and were only one step away from second-rank martial artists. And the martial skills they mastered were at least B rank. While I was the most talented she had ever seen, but I lacked the abundant resources they had. So she hoped that even if I suffered setbacks in the training camp, I should not take it to heart. With my talent, surpassing them was inevitable. When I answered with a few short words, I know. Thank you, Sister Wu. Wu Lingxian finally understood that she had worried too much. Being so calm even when knowing I was inferior to others meant that I must have some hidden trump card. Near noon, I finally got on the school-arranged bus, learning that the training camp was in the Tianlie Mountains, where beasts gathered. Chen Shan and Li Tu both wanted to back out, feeling like they were already being targeted by high-level beasts. This was not their fault. After all, the Tianlie Mountains was a huge mountain range spanning Xinjiang, Yangcheng, and several other cities. It was not only rich in spiritual energy but also had many beasts, including beast kings comparable to 7th-rank grandmasters. But thinking that the training camp had grandmaster protection, there was no danger. I could not help but look forward to life here. I did not know how long had passed when the bus stopped in front of a camp. Looking at the martial artists who had arrived earlier, Li Tu was curious about their strength, but as their gazes turned toward us, they both froze on the spot, clearly sensing that these guys were not to be messed with. But I was fearless, called for them to follow, and took the lead toward the training camp gate. But a figure reached out and stopped us, reminding us to wait for everyone to arrive, and then begin the entry assessment. And so, after several dozen minutes, the roar of engines came from afar. A fleet of dozens of luxury cars stopped at the gate, and several well-dressed young masters stepped out. From the people around, I learned that the leader was the city lord's son, Wang Tiantuo, with 95% fire attribute compatibility, plus a special physique. The one who called himself the most handsome in the world was Lin Xinghe of the Lin family, with strength infinitely close to second-rank martial artist. As for the last girl, named Xiaoyan, she was a very special psychic among martial artists. Watching them walk to the front of the line, I felt an inexplicable stirring inside. So these were the 3 top geniuses President Wu mentioned. I wanted to see just how talented they really were. But just as I was thinking this, the person in charge began announcing the entry assessment rules. The real training camp was inside the Tianling Mountains. 30 kilometers from this camp, tokens had been buried inside the beasts along the way. Only by holding a token could one enter the training camp within 8 hours. He also added that if you encountered a high-level beast, you could only consider yourself unlucky and be eliminated. But someone would step in to save your life. Everyone thought the assessment was unfair. After all, the strong might be eliminated by bad luck, while the weak might pass by luck. But the person in charge scolded them to shut up, saying that this world was not a game. If you did not want to be eliminated, act cautiously. Knowing how to avoid risks and using the strong to bully the weak was the law of the battlefield. Then a man in a suit stepped forward, mocking that only useless people would be afraid of this and that they might as well withdraw early. Knowing the man was insulting him, the crew-cut man was about to teach him a lesson. But since fighting was forbidden inside the camp, any grievances could be resolved after leaving the camp, whether it was stealing tokens or beating people up. The crew-cut man had to suppress his anger and endure. Seeing this, I fell into thought. This training camp was indeed cruel, actually encouraging competition among themselves. Under these rules, at least half the people would be eliminated. But for me, It was a welcome opportunity. If I fought these people, would I not earn a lot of martial points? At the same time, the person in charge wasted no words and directly announced the start of the assessment. Instantly, everyone rushed out of the camp, and the crew cut man closely followed the suit man. He was determined to make this suit man go home today. As the two activated their respective guiding techniques, the battle finally began in the forest. But what they did not know was that a figure was watching all this from the treetops. At this moment, I was thinking that the combat power of these so-called geniuses was far worse than I had imagined. Even if I defeated them, I would probably get few martial points. Rather than waste time on them, I might as well hunt more beasts. But unexpectedly, the two started trash-talking each other as they fought. Hearing the suit man say that poor people are poor people, and that hard training was useless, and the crew cut man say, "Do not compare me to those poor laborers," I was forced to activate my hunting mode. It seemed that martial points delivered to my door should not be let go. To teach them a lesson, I stopped the two who were fighting. At first, they thought I was there to mediate, and threatened me to get lost, or they would beat me too. But I smiled disdainfully. Do not misunderstand. I only want to beat you two to death, or be beaten to death by you two. Hearing this, the crew cut man immediately threw a punch, thinking I was asking for death. But my reaction was clearly faster. With just one kick, he was sent flying right in front of the suit man. This left the suit man staring blankly, unable to believe that an opponent close to his strength could not even take one of my moves. And just as he was stunned, he suddenly heard a whistling sound by his ear, and then he also took a blow to the head. Looking at the two unconscious men, I kindly advised them not to look down on ordinary cultivators. Little did I know that my actions were being watched by the examiners in the monitoring room. Hearing a colleague complain that I had no martial ethics, and that they were having a passionate duel, and I jumped in and knocked them out. The chief examiner verbally agreed, but in his heart, he had also taken some interest in me. I did not know how long had passed. The suit man woke up first, recalling the scene of being knocked down. He gritted his teeth and swore that he would find me and tear me apart. Just then, the crew cut man also woke up. The two brothers in misfortune looked at each other. Not only did they immediately turn their hostility into friendship, but they also supported each other to find me for revenge. I did not care what they did, and had already reached the depths of the forest. Suddenly, a group of beasts blocked my way. Seeing another group of first-rank, low-level, giant-tusked boars, I was a bit speechless, because I had lost count of how many groups I had encountered. But even so, I still used Thunderclap Fist to kill them all, mainly because, after I had been upgraded and became stronger, these low-level beasts gave fewer and fewer martial points. And the most important thing now was to find the entry token. Unfortunately, after searching through the beasts' stomachs, I still did not see any token, realizing that only higher-level beasts would have them. I continued running deeper into the forest, but after several kilometers, I could not see a single beast for some reason. And just as I was thinking this, a huge dark shadow appeared before me, and it was a first-rank high-level night shadow black tiger. Seeing this, a smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Finally, no more low-level beasts. The next second, I decisively fired a void breaker finger, without any surprise. This night shadow black tiger was instantly knocked to the ground by the impact. Then I quickly picked up my spear. After finishing off the night shadow black tiger, I could not help but sigh that with my current strength, killing a first-rank high-level beast was simply effortless. So I cut open its stomach again and searched. The moment the token was shoot true, I twitched my mouth. I had spent nearly 3 hours just to find it. Combined with the fact that from the start, there were low-level boars everywhere, and it took half an hour to find a high-level black tiger. I guess that the deeper into the mountains, the higher the beast ranks. But relatively speaking, the numbers would also decrease. That meant if I hunted low-level beasts on the outskirts, I could earn more martial points. Rather than pursuing quality, I might as well use quantity. Thinking of this, I made up my mind to accumulate enough martial points to fill the body progress bar within the remaining 5 hours of the assessment. And so, after a full 2 hours of hunting, beast corpses lay everywhere on the outskirts of the forest. But just as I killed another giant tusked boar, a first-rank mid-level raging black bear ambushed me from behind. Fortunately, I dodged the attack in time, thinking that after killing over 10 low-level beasts, I had finally encountered a mid-level beast. So I immediately began charging Thunderclap Fist with just one punch. This raging black bear was sent flying like a beam of light. But unexpectedly, this blow did not kill it, and it let out a piercing roar after hitting a tree trunk. When it regained its senses, what reflected in its eyes was my rapidly approaching figure, because this punch used all my strength. It actually snapped the tree trunk behind it in half. Even I had not expected that after my body reached 60%, I could kill a first-rank mid-level beast with just physical strength. Then I opened the system panel. I had already earned 254 martial points. I still needed over 100 points to fill the body progress bar. So as long as I gathered them in the remaining 3 hours, I could head straight to the camp and complete the entry assessment. But just then, an earth-shattering wave of air swept from the depths of the forest, and then a massive shadow covered the sky. I immediately recognized it as the legendary Golden Peng Beast King. But as the Golden Peng Beast King gradually rose into the air, I felt my pressure multiply. So this was the power of a Beast King level beast, just by flapping its wings. It created such a terrifying impact. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a large rock in the distance allowed me to escape danger. And at the same time, I thought, I had recently been complacent about my strength, but in front of these top-tier powerhouses, I was nothing but an ant. Suddenly, my pupils dilated, because at an altitude of 100 meters, a figure seemed to be confronting the Golden Peng Beast King. As a 7th-rank Grandmaster, Qin Tianlie declared domineeringly that he had borrowed this territory, and told the Golden Peng Beast King to go back where it came from. Unexpectedly, the Golden Peng Beast King spoke human words. I have never said I would lend you the Tianling Mountains. Hearing this, Qin Tianlie decisively attacked, determined to fight until the Golden Peng Beast King agreed. After their first collision, the Golden Peng Beast King let out a piercing cry, seemingly trying to use sonic waves to reduce Qin Tianlie's combat power. But he clearly underestimated the power of a Grandmaster. Qin Tianlie turned into a blur and shouted, "Too noisy." The moment he finished speaking, this Beast King level beast directly became a punching bag. After hundreds of consecutive punches, the Golden Peng Beast King was knocked back, and Qin Tianlie gave it an ultimatum. I do not want to say it again. Get back now. I, Qin Tianlie, am borrowing this land, knowing it could not win. The Golden Peng Beast King could only leave with harsh words. Qin Tianlie took a deep breath. The next second, his voice resounded across the sky. I am the 7th-rank Grandmaster Qin Tianlie. All trainees, do not panic. The assessment continues now. Hearing this majestic shout, I could not help but sigh. So this is the power of a human Grandmaster. One day, I will reach this level too. At the same time, Qin Tianlie had already returned to the training camp. Before landing, he cursed that the Golden Peng Beast King did not know its place. It just lent its territory as a training ground, and had to come back to get beaten. The 2 5th-rank martial artists praised him as worthy of a Grandmaster, for beating a Beast King famous for its strong physique into submission. But he told them to stop flattering him, and to spend that time back in the monitoring room, to see who had withstood the Golden Peng Beast King's pressure just now. Through the monitor playback, the 3 found that most trainees could not move under the pressure. But what Qin Tianlie found interesting was that someone, after killing a 1st-rank high-level black tiger, could easily withstand the pressure. Learning that this person was Wang Tiantuo, the son of Yangcheng City Lord, a 1st-rank high-level martial artist with 340 blood energy. Not only did he have 95% fire attribute compatibility, but he also possessed the divine physique of unlimited strength. Qin Tianlie highly praised him, also gaining his approval were Lin Xinghe and Xiao Yan. One relied on 96% wind attribute compatibility, plus 1st-rank high-level martial artist strength, to escape the pressure range with agile footwork. And the other, although only 1st-rank mid-level, with 95% wood attribute compatibility, was able to use mental power to offset the impact. When Qin Tianlie asked if anyone else had withstood the impact, especially students from Yangcheng No. 1 High School, after looking through the information, Bai Mu said, the dozen or so were all from noble families. As for the 3 from No. 1 High School, they had all just broken through to martial artists recently. Hearing this, Qin Tianlie immediately lost interest, and waved for Bai Mu not to continue, feeling that Yangcheng No. 1 High School was somewhat overrated. But unexpectedly, Lin Zhe beside him suddenly exclaimed, "What is this person doing?" Just after experiencing the Golden Peng's pressure, he still had the energy to hunt beasts. The person in the picture was none other than me, who was madly slaughtering giant tusked boars. On the other hand, Bai Mu twitched his mouth when he saw the information, and even his speech became stammering. He is a monster from Yangcheng No. 1 High School. Lin Zhe snatched the information after hearing that. He wanted to see what kind of monster could make Bai Mu so startled in front of a Grandmaster. But the next second, he was dumbfounded. He is simply a monster. This instantly piqued Qin Tianlie's curiosity. He tore off the information and criticized. You two are at least 5th rank. What geniuses have you not seen? It seems you are still not calm enough for your age. But that single glance. Qin Tianlie's eyes instantly filled with bloodshot. Is this even human? The information showed the recommendation comments. Not only did I have 100% compatibility in all attributes, but I also had a special physique and had been in a martial artist assessment, comparable to a 1st-rank high-level martial artist. At this moment, Qin Tianlie was even more excited than the two, unable to believe that such a monster could emerge from a place like Yangcheng. He tightly clenched the paper in his hand. This kind of once-in-a-millennium monster. I have really found a treasure. After calming down, he asked Bai Mu, why is this Su Hong only first-rank beginner? With his talent, should his blood energy not be 123 points? When Bai Mu answered that he was cultivating all 7 guiding techniques simultaneously, Qin Tianlie immediately flew into a rage, cursing that the president of the Yangcheng Martial Artists Association was an idiot for not explaining this clearly to a child. If this continued, even the gods would be finished. Then someone came in to report that the trainees had begun arriving at the training camp. When Qin Tianlie came outside, the first to arrive were Wang Tiantuo and the other 2. Then many others staggered into the camp. Since he had not seen me, Qin Tianlie could only hover above the camp and wait, wondering why that monster Su Hong had not arrived yet. Could he be lost? Do not eliminate my treasure. Until he saw a figure slowly approaching. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. Kid, you finally made it. There are still 5 minutes until the assessment ends. I felt somewhat relieved. Finally made it. I was so focused on earning martial points that I almost forgot the time. But when I walked to the center of the camp, everyone wondered why I looked so exhausted. The suit man and crew cut man also noticed me. But since they had just passed the assessment, it was not appropriate to act. They decided to find a chance to get revenge later. Even the trio was very interested in me, thinking that someone who passed at the last minute was either an expert or a novice. After gathering all the trainees who passed, Lin Zhe began introducing the camp's facilities and rules. They included a gravity training room, a movement training room, and a beast combat training room, as well as a martial arts hall where you could exchange for martial skills, elixirs, and weapons, with the highest grade being A rank. But to use these facilities, you needed enough contribution points, and there was only one way to earn contribution points. That was through each training subject, with additional rewards for outstanding performance. After the rules were read out, Lin Zhe told everyone to follow him back to the dormitory to rest. But I smiled slightly, thinking that this training camp was indeed the right place. Just after returning to the assigned single dormitory, my first reaction was that future training and upgrades would not have to worry about being seen, so I could not wait to sit on the bed and inject all the accumulated martial points into my body. As I poured all the martial points I had saved into my body, I felt as if my blood was boiling at this moment. So much so that my entire body was wrapped in a thick layer of blood energy. Fortunately, this pain did not last too long. When the energy gradually subsided, I knew that my body had successfully advanced, so I immediately opened the system panel, seeing that it said this was the strongest physique, the Overlord Physique. I was very confused, because I had never heard of this physique before, and there was still a percentage after the spiritual rank, seemingly meaning that the Overlord Physique could continue to upgrade. At the moment, I did not care too much. I got dressed and prepared to go out and test, to see just how powerful the Overlord Physique was. But I did not expect that just by lightly picking up my spear, I actually dented the shaft with my grip. This left me stunned. This was a C-grade alloy spear worth 60,000 yuan, and just a casual grip nearly broke it. Suddenly, I thought of something. This spear was found in the wild outside Yangcheng, so it cost nothing. It seemed like there was no loss, but it looked like I would have to gather contribution points as soon as possible to exchange for a higher quality spear at the martial arts hall. Thinking that wearing a weighted vest could earn contribution points, I immediately had a goal. At the same time, many people had gathered in the camp warehouse, all exclaiming that the city lord's son, Wang Tiantuo, was a monster. It turned out that he could jump while wearing a 3,000 kilogram weighted vest, while a normal first-rank martial artist could only manage a few hundred kilograms. Even Lin Xinghe and Xiao Yan called him a brute, with strength like a monster. This scene happened to be seen by Qin Tianlie and the others in the monitoring room, all amazed at Wang Tiantuo's infinite strength from his divine physique. But Bai Mu was clearly more concerned about another monster, Grandmaster Qin, about Su Hong cultivating all 7 guiding techniques. Should we find a chance to explain it to him tomorrow? Qin Tianlie told her not to be so direct, because geniuses had pride. Direct explanation would only backfire. They needed to use some method to make him give up voluntarily. With that, he turned his gaze to Lin Zhe and asked if the martial artists arranged for the night raid had assembled. Lin Zhe smiled wickedly. It would take a little more time, but these trainees had just finished the entry assessment and were probably in a relaxed state. Suddenly being attacked at this time would definitely be exciting. Unexpectedly, Qin Tianlie actually said, "You go arrange a first-rank high-level martial artist for Su Hong. I want that kid to be defeated. Then I will explain the drawbacks of cultivating all 7 guiding techniques. By then, he will obediently give up." Hearing this, Lin Zhe and Bai Mu thought he was crazy. A first-rank high-level martial artist had over 400 blood energy and combat power close to 5,000. If they broke his morale, would that not ruin him? But Qin Tianlie did not think so. In his view, if his morale was so easily broken, then he was just a waste. I had no idea about what was about to happen, and walked straight to the camp warehouse. From the conversations of the people ahead, I learned that Wang Tianchuo seemed to have gone to the gravity training room. Since everyone was going to watch his training, I would go check it out later. After picking up the smart bracelet that recorded points, I had just walked near the gravity vests, and was startled by the 10-ton value. Who could even wear that? After actually trying it, I found I could barely put it on, but it severely limited my movement. After a series of tests, I finally chose a 5-ton gravity vest. It was not too strenuous, and I could move freely. Just right for me now. I just wondered how much weight Wang Tianchuo was carrying. They were first rank high level, so they should be a bit stronger than me. To understand their training methods, I quickly dressed and headed outside. When I reached my destination, everyone was discussing that Wang Tianchuo was not human. He entered the gravity room without taking off his 3-ton vest, and even set the gravity to 2x. Seeing him struggling a bit under 6x gravity on the monitor, I seemed to discover a fact. That my understanding of the Overlord Physique's power was somewhat wrong. Otherwise, Wang Tianchuo's vest would not be only 3 tons. Then I noticed 2 familiar figures. Hearing me ask why they were not training inside, Chen Shan and Li Tu explained. These people were all monsters. If we went in, we would definitely be compared. And that would be too embarrassing. Hearing this, I patted Chen Shan's shoulder. Is that the reason? Seeing me stride toward the gravity room entrance, the two quickly advised me to wait. Otherwise, I would definitely be ridiculed by everyone. Everyone around thought I had no shame, not even wearing a gravity suit. Wanting to surpass Wang Tianchuo in gravity was laughable, but I ignored them. After all, this gravity room was extremely expensive. Only a few wealthy families could afford it. An ordinary martial artist like me could not access it, so I could not miss such a good opportunity. And I was currently wearing a 5-ton weighted vest. Twice that was 10 tons. I could only last about 10 minutes at most, so I set it to 1.5x instead. That way I could last longer. But the moment I pressed the start button, I felt as if my body was filled with lead. Seeing my performance on the monitor, those who had mocked me laughed even louder, saying that the straggler was just a straggler. How could he not even handle 1.5x gravity? Fortunately, I quickly adapted to the weight, and also understood that in such a heavy pressure environment, cultivating the guiding technique was much harder. But the cultivation speed was clearly much faster than outside, and so 2 hours passed. When I let out a long breath and ended my training, my blood energy had even increased from 126 to 130 points. This excited me. The gravity room had such good effects. Then the movement room and beast combat room would certainly be good too. But the moment I stepped out of the gravity room, 2 people nearby immediately mocked. Look, that straggler is out already. Just 1.5x gravity and he is covered in sweat. If it were us, we could probably sleep in there. But when I took off my jacket to cool down, although their impression of me changed somewhat, combined with my struggling appearance, they guessed that my weighted vest was at most 500 kilograms. Even if I had some strength, I could not compare to those geniuses who carried thousands of kilograms. Fortunately, Wang Tianchuo was about to finish his training, and drew everyone's attention. As Wang Tianchuo walked out of the gravity room dripping with sweat, the weighted vest he took off left everyone frozen in place. At this moment, they all had only one thought. With the weight of that vest, Wang Tianchuo's physical strength was definitely the #1 in the training camp. Even Lin Xing smiled and said, in terms of strength, no one here could compare to him. Why not go to the movement room and compete in agility? But Wang Tianchuo firmly refused, believing that only someone with a broken mind would compare agility with Lin Xinghe. His reason was that Lin Xinghe cultivated an A-rank movement technique, and the wind attribute, famous for its speed. Hearing this, I immediately became interested, thinking that although the Overlord Physique had an absolute advantage in strength, it could not make up for deficiencies in movement. When Lin Xinghe entered the movement training room, some well-informed trainees exclaimed, "Is this the A-rank movement technique, Flying Swan Startling Cloud Step? Is it really that strong?" On the monitor, Lin Xinghe faced maximum difficulty arrow attacks, and still perfectly avoided all of them with his agile footwork. He even had the spare energy to toss pedals and make various flashy poses. And I looked at the system panel, and sighed that it was indeed a good movement technique. Then I entered the consciousness space without hesitation to practice. Little did I know that the crowd had also turned their gaze toward me, seeing me imitate Lin Xinghe's movements. They mocked me for being an idiot, thinking I could learn Flying Swan's Startling Cloud Step just by watching. I had no idea about the outside evaluations. When the system notified me that Flying Swan's Startling Cloud Step had officially reached entry level, I stopped and ended my practice. At the same time, I was complaining that Lin Xinghe's movements were too flashy. If I had not seen the normal Flying Swan Startling Cloud Step before, I would rather die than learn from him. But since I had already learned the movement technique, I no longer needed to train in the movement room. The extra time could be spent in the beast room hunting beasts, to earn more martial points and increase my blood energy. But unexpectedly, just as I returned to reality, I heard everyone discussing that my movements just now were very flashy, and had the charm of Lin Xing. They said they could never imitate it. Realizing this, I froze in embarrassment. Did I actually make those flashy movements in reality too? Thinking of this, I ran away. Damn it. I must never use Lin Xinghe as a learning template again. Watching my retreating figure, the revenge duo guessed I was heading to the beast room and decided to block the entrance, to give me a good beating when I came out. Soon, many people gathered in front of the beast room. It turned out Xiao Yan wanted to compete with Wang Tiantuo in hunting beasts, to determine who was number one in the training camp. Wang Tiantuo did not take it seriously. He did not think Xiao Yan could surpass his divine physique with just her mental power. This scene happened to catch my eye. Curious about how a mentalist fought, I decided to watch first, and then go kill monsters for martial points. When I saw Xiao Yan suddenly float into the air on the monitor, I was stunned. Walking in the air was a means only grandmasters possessed, so this was a mentalist. Before I could recover from the shock, Xiao Yan had already struck. In an instant, she killed 3 first-rank high-level black tigers at once, and when another black tiger tried to ambush her from behind, she used her mental power to forcefully bind it in midair, as her arm swept across. This ambushing black tiger was also instantly killed. Recognizing the light as a dagger, I could not help trembling all over. Walking in the air, controlling objects from a distance, controlling enemies. No wonder every mentalist was overpoweringly strong. But just as I was thinking this, someone else exclaimed, "What is this?" Xiao Yan had now engaged a first-rank late-stage black-scaled python, and was holding a giant sword dozens of feet tall. With a single thought, the giant sword slashed down and split the python in half. Witnessing this, I was greatly shocked. She had not been carrying a weapon before, and such a huge weapon would weigh several tons, would it not? Just then, Lin Xinghe arrived here. His words sparked discussion among everyone. Another A rank. Why do you all have A rank martial skills? Surely Wang Tiantuo has one too. Lin Xinghe answered that Wang Tiantuo had an offensive A rank martial skill. I went from surprise to delight. This training camp really is full of A rank martial skills. Coming here was definitely the right choice. When I saw on the monitor that Wang Tiantuo was killing beasts with just his physical strength, I knew he probably did not intend to use any martial skills. I could only wait for another chance to steal his martial skill. But right now, I just wanted to become a mentalist. I remembered that only with over 100 mental power could one become a mentalist, and my mental power was only 26.5. To reach 100, I still needed 735 martial points. It seemed I would have to go on a killing spree. However, my figure walking alone toward the beast room entrance was seen by the revenge duo, so they immediately followed, thinking this was a golden opportunity. While everyone else was watching Wang Tiantuo and Xiao Yan train, they could barge in and beat me up. Unexpectedly, the crew cut man suddenly exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" At first, the suit man told him not to shout, in case I noticed, but the next second, he also shouted, "What the hell? This kid is crazy," because standing before me now were more than a dozen menacing first-rank high-level beasts, and in their eyes, my situation was no different from suicide. Even if they called an instructor to save me, it would be too late. I would be torn to pieces in seconds. But they did not know that I was not afraid of these menacing beasts. On the contrary, I was eager to fight. As I provocatively waved at them, the beasts all pounced at me. After using Flying Swan Startling Cloud Step to dodge a giant claw scorpion's attack, I gathered Void Breaker Finger energy in both hands, and instantly killed several nearby scorpions. Seeing me slaughtering through the beasts on the monitor, the revenge duo was stunned, wondering if they were dreaming, because even a mid-level martial artist would surely die in this situation. But when the crew cut man said my movement seemed familiar, the suit man suddenly realized, and recognized it as Lin Xinghe's Flying Swan Startling Cloud Step. But they knew I came from the poor number 1 high school, and that I should never have been able to access such high-quality movement. The only possibility was that I had just watched Lin Xinghe perform it, and then mastered it with my own talent. The crew cut man felt inexplicably guilty, and suggested they forget about revenge. Otherwise, the two of them together would not be enough for me to beat. But the suit man could not swallow his pride. He absolutely would not allow a slum student to lord over him. And this person also had such heaven-defying talent. Unexpectedly, the crew cut man trembled and reached out his hand. Before you cause trouble for him, better look at this first. That single glance made the suit man's wooden stick unconsciously drop to the ground. It turned out that, while they were talking, I had already killed all those first-rank high-level beasts, But what annoyed me was, these beasts only gave me 81 martial points in total, meaning the stronger I became, the harder it was to earn martial points. Just then, the second wave of beasts in the combat room was released. Knowing there was no time to rest, I stood up and prepared to fight. But unexpectedly, a three-eyed mad lion launched a sneak attack first, but it clearly underestimated the human before it, with just one perfect diamond fist. This leading three-eyed mad lion was knocked to the ground. This made the other beasts fearful, and they began to retreat slowly. Seeing this, I charged straight at them. "Where are you running? Hand over your martial points obediently." Wherever I went, these beasts were no match for me. The duo outside the beast room were already stunned. Finally, the suit man broke the silence. "Revenge begets revenge. Let it end. I have decided to forgive him." Even the crew cut man added, "Let us get out of here quickly, before we get beaten by that freak again." Just as the two were about to slink away, someone suddenly called out to them. "You two said you were going for revenge. Did you not? Have you already beaten that kid into a pulp?" Hearing the word "beat him," the two froze in place, thinking, beat him. If it were not for our quick wits, we would probably be lying on the ground like dead dogs by now. Meanwhile, Wang Tianchuo and Xiaoyan had just walked out of the beast room. Learning that Wang Tianchuo had earned 280 contribution points, and Xiaoyan had 270, everyone was in an uproar. A first-rank high-level beast was only worth 5 points. That meant they had killed about 50 or 60 of them, and the contribution points from the weighted vests were also settled. Wang Tianchuo got 100, Xiaoyan got 50. Although the others could not compare to these two, they still had 20 or 30 points. With these three monsters around, everyone was destined to have no chance at the top three. The crew cut man and suit man were a bit gleeful. Ignorant people. There is an even more terrifying monster in the training camp, who completely surpasses these three. Until an hour later, I finally stopped hunting beasts, and the long, high-intensity battle had left me exhausted, even with the Overlord Physique. Unfortunately, I was still short of the 735 martial points. The only good news was, the beast hunting and weighted vest together gave me 700 contribution points. I wondered what I could exchange for at the martial arts hall. So under the cover of night, I went to the martial arts hall. The front desk girl handed me a list of items. After checking, I found that elixirs did not require many contribution points, but as long as it was an A-rank martial skill or movement. The cheapest started at 2,000 points. Just as I was thinking about what to exchange for, the front desk girl impatiently asked if I had decided, because in her eyes, I was just a first-rank beginner martial artist, and probably could not afford anything. Coming here was just wasting her time, even when I asked if the spirit gathering pill on the list was the kind that could increase mental power. Her tone was full of indifference. Yes, the higher the grade, the better the effect. Hearing this, I found the highest quality spirit gathering pill on the list. Seeing the price of 500 contribution points, I immediately said, "Give me one 4th rank spirit gathering pill first." This left the front desk girl speechless, reminding me that a 4th rank spirit gathering pill cost 500 points, not 50, until she saw the number 700 on my point bracelet. She was shocked into silence. Seeing her change her attitude and hand over the packaged pill, I also asked for a Thunderfire dual attribute alloy spear. After returning to the dormitory, I summed up today's gains. This C-rank Thunderfire spear cost me 200 contribution points. My blood energy and guiding techniques had also improved, and I had earned 490 martial points. In total, today's improvement was more than the entire previous week, if I used all the martial points, plus my original 26.5 mental power. I would still be short by 25.5 to reach 100. I just hoped this spirit gathering pill could provide 25.5 mental power. Thinking this, I swallowed it in one gulp. Mentalist. I, Su Hong, am determined to become one. Unexpectedly, the pill took effect immediately. Not only did it soothe my exhausted nerves from hunting, but my mind also became extremely clear, and I could clearly sense everything around me. When I opened my eyes again, my mental power had increased from 26.5 to 50.5, a full 24 points of mental power. Unfortunately, even with the points from the 490 martial points added, I was still short 0.5 to reach the requirement, although I was a bit annoyed that I could not kill one more beast. Little did I know. At this moment, a large group of martial artists had gathered in the training camp warehouse, all discussing the new trainees they were about to ambush.